John, do you give me permission to publish this interview on social media?
Yes, sir, I do.
John, could you tell me about your childhood? How'd you grow up?
I initially lived with my grandparents until I was around 3 years old when my mother remarried. I don't remember a lot of the incidences that led up to the divorce between her and my biological father. I do know that at some point he denied that I was his son. No way that I couldn't be his. So we look much alike. Um, then after I went to live with my mother and my dad, the man I call dad, we lived in East Texas, and by the time I was 9, we lived in Houston. And I grew up, that's why I grew up in Houston, Texas. Um, didn't do well in school, started rebelling as a teenager, um, started looking for alternatives to how do I say medicate the pain, and I use sex and drugs and just about anything I get my hands on to eliminate the pain in my heart that I didn't even understand was there. I was rebellious from the time I was 12 uh, until I was in my 30s. I would say I lived in a rebellion, running from things and running from myself, drugs, and just living a life that was on the margins was a good way to put it, because I wanted to, because I didn't know any other thing, any other way to mitigate the pain.
What was the pain you were trying to medicate?
I now understand that it was the rejection of my biological father, which, even though I don't have a memory of, so to speak, I know that that whole situation was traumatic. I plus the fact that I grew up the first 2 years, 2.5 years, almost 3 years without a mother. My grandparents raised me until I was just about three because she was going to school. And, you know, in a little person's mind, that doesn't really matter. It's the mom's not there. So I learned to comfort myself instead of being comforted by the people who should have been comforting me. And I turned inside and I learned to take care of things in my own strength. The favorite childhood memories. Um, Going to my dad's parents' house in Hereford, Texas, and my grandmother was great. She doted on me and my sister the whole time we were up there. She taught me how to ride a bicycle, um, and uh, our time spent up there was always very, very positive. I was married. She divorced me in 2007, and children, six living that I'm aware of.
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
Did you say you got 6 kids?
Six that are living. We had seven total.
How old are you?
65.
65. What was your life like before incarceration?
I was struggling with various addictions. Uh, Personally, I was living two lives. One where I was a semi-successful mid-level manager in automotive industry, and one where I was running around trying to fulfill, trying to fill the hole in my heart, trying to medicate the pain that still was there from my childhood, and I didn't even know that it was there. Like any addict, I would lie to myself and tell myself that I could handle it this time, and of course, all that did was just take me down a steep decline into the pit. And the last time I fell into the addiction, it took me places I swore I'd never go and did things I swore I'd never do. And that's how I got put in here.
So, how long did you deal with addiction?
I dealt with addiction from the time I was probably 8 or 9, all the way until the Lord delivered me from the addictions. And I was 48 and a half years old when He did.
What, if you don't mind me asking, what was your addiction?
I had addictions to various drugs. I had addictions to success. I had addictions to adrenaline. I had addictions to sex. That was the big one. That was the underlying one. I had addictions to uh, almost everything but alcohol at one point or another, um, which was really kind of crazy. Uh, I couldn't deal with alcohol. That was the one thing I could not deal with. I got drunk real bad when I was about 15 years old and got sick. And after that, I didn't want that. I think I got drunk twice more in my whole life. And for somebody who was as heavily addicted to various types of drugs and to internet porn and to just sexual encounters with strange women, that was a pretty big deal.
What was your drug of choice?
Um, at the end of everything, it was sex.
No, I understand that. I understand that. It's not good for a man to be alone.
Well, I wasn't alone. I just was running around with anything and everything that I could run around with whenever I fall back into the addictive cycle. From looking at internet pornography to going to places that had different kinds of shows to paying for women in places like Vegas and Vancouver, Canada, and out in California, etc. Uh, the very last time I fell into addiction, I fell into some things that were much more, uh, they were a lot more twisted, perverted than the things that I'd fallen into before.
What were your events that led up to your incarceration?
Um, I started having a relationship with someone who was underage, and uh, I got I started trolling for a certain type of pornography, and was arrested for having tried to buy that type of pornography, and that's when they found out about the relationship with the person. Yeah, in early 2005, I started going to see a psychologist. Maybe even late 2004, uh, trying to get a handle on the sexual addiction, on the internet pornography addiction, and he did something called rapid eye movement desensitization, and I honestly felt something like lift off of me. I just felt something that changed, and uh, so I really did for a while stop engaging in any type of porn or extracurricular sexual activity outside my marriage. That lasted until sometime in 2005. So it actually did work for a little while, just didn't work full time. Because when I went through a period of depression, uh, I I lied to myself and told myself that I could handle it. This time I could handle it, which is the lie every addict tries to tell himself. And so I dabbled in internet pornography for a little bit, and I fell into a type of pornography that was much different than anything I'd ever experienced up to that point. And at first, it repulsed me, and I immediately got out of there. I didn't want to see anything like that. But as is most addictions, even this addiction causes the addict to want and crave something stronger. And in this case, it's usually more obscene, more perverse. And so I ended up going back to this thing. And somewhere along the line, I got really engaged in looking at younger women, and I mean underage, uh, usually just with no clothes on, but sometimes engaged with that. And then my niece moved in with us, and she was very needy. And I was going through a really bad time with depression. We started hanging out together. At first, it wasn't anything other than just me hanging out with her and nothing really going on. But then it became something more than that. And we had a second relationship that we never had intercourse. It was still absolutely positively, without any question. Uh, it was illegal for one thing, but also against what I now know is God's heart. I got caught, and the getting caught, I went to jail and spent 6 months in the county jail, hearing voices at night, having wicked nightmares. Uh, Ended up talking to a psychologist several times, and then I ended up seeing a psychiatrist. Ended up getting on psychiatric medications. The first Prozac, and then he tried to put me on something else. And it was at that point when he gave me this other medication, and I didn't like it. I quit taking it and told him I wasn't going to take it. Getting back on the Prozac, that I began talking to a volunteer chaplain at the jail, and he discerned quite rightly that I had a demonic issue. When he said that, I did not believe in. I didn't believe in. I didn't believe in Satan. I didn't believe in demons. I didn't believe in anything. I knew there was a creator. I certainly didn't believe that Jesus was the Son of God who had died for our sins. None of that was anything real to me. He suggested that he come with another man and they pray over me. He suggested that I fast, which I had no idea what a fast was. I found out later that not only had those two been fasting, but they had people on the outside praying and fasting over the situation. They came and we went into what's called a sick call room in the county jail, and they started praying over me. And the one kind of in charge commanded what he believed to be demons to come out, and they did. And there was more than one, that's for sure. I have no idea how many.
How did you know a demon came out?
I felt it come out. I physically felt this thing leave me in a way that was so real and so unbelievable that I mean I didn't believe in this stuff. So this was not something I was prepared for. I thought
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
I was at the point where I was willing to try anything to make the voices stop. The voices saying that I should kill myself, and the all kinds of insanity and the nightmares. And I mean, I got to the point where I couldn't sleep at night. I slept during the day and only slept for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Invited me to accept the Lord as my master, and I did. I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior and my master, and I gave my life to Him at that point. I spoke in a language that wasn't anything that I'd ever heard or spoken in before. I have no idea if it was an angelic language or a language from another nation, but I spoke it. And I saw a very quick vision of the risen one, and then I was kind of back. where I belong, so to speak. I was back in my body going, wow, was this real? And I mean, I really at that point didn't know if what I had experienced was just an illusion or hallucination. They confirmed that it was very real what I had gone through. And I was radically changed in one day, March the 13th, 2007. I remember praying at one point. I just read the book of John, and in John 10, he talks about my sheep hear my voice and they follow me. And I said, Lord, I've seen you real briefly, can't remember it, but I don't know that I hear your voice. I want to make sure I hear your voice. So I'm asking, based on scripture, where it says that your sheep hear your voice, follow you, that you enable me to hear you. And within a few minutes, I was I heard something that sounded like I was talking to somebody standing right next to me, and I thought there was literally somebody that walked into my cell and was talking to me. And I turned around and looked, and there was somebody there. And I'm like, "Okay, Lord, I got it.
Been there.
Thank you."
Yep, I've been there, man. I've been there. Well, how much time do you have?
Well, I had 115 to 144 years.
Well, John, tell me your greatest regrets.
My greatest regret is absolutely positively not coming to the Lord in the many, many times that I probably had an opportunity. And by the time I was a teenager up until the time I actually became at 48 and a half years old. That beyond anything else is my greatest regret. My second greatest regret is the damage that I did to my family. My wife, now ex-wife, and my children with what I did. And of course, the victim. She was much too young for what we did, and it didn't matter that we didn't have quote unquote full blown sex. It mattered that what I did was damaging spiritually, mentally, emotionally, definitely damaging to the entire family.
Well, John, how do you see the future?
Honestly, I see the future as simply serving him, whatever way he wants. It doesn't matter to me where I go. If I stay in prison, if that's what he wants, then I'm okay with that. I'm not going to say I like it, but I'm okay with it. If he wants to release me back into the real world, that's okay too. But either way, the goal is to serve him until the day he decides to remove me from the planet or he returns, depending on which one goes first.
John, what's your greatest fear?
My whole focus, my whole life now is serving him, and by serving him, serving others. I don't want to lose my mental acuity, my ability to think, my ability to speak, because he gave me a tremendous ability to communicate orally and to teach the word. I would caution parents about sexually explicit material in their house to the child, especially a child of 8 or 9.
John, I appreciate this
Thank you,
interview.
my brother. I appreciate you. Yes, sir. I appreciate you. Thanks, Robbie. Talk to you soon.
You be blessed.